Hey guys, so today we are going to talk about incorporating everything that we've done thus far into one dynamic trade plan, and how to leverage what we just learned with trend and channels and wedges into trading with support and resistance, supply and demand, change control zones, etc. So, as always, I am just starting off with some basic support and resistance on the weekly chart. And really all I'm going to focus on is just how many opportunities you can give yourself right in this short amount of time here. So I'm going to start my true analysis here on the daily. And I'm going to be looking at, so this is kind of our peak up here. So this is where I'm going to cut it off. Okay, so you can see that we find this is where we get the true momentum to carry us into a nice trend downward. Right up here, it's just a lot of consolidation, couple of sharp moves, and then once we break down below, then we really start to get that true momentum. So this is where I want to start. This is where I want to start my analysis, right? So this is where I want to start trend, because as I just mentioned, this is where the trend truly does kick off. Okay, so I'm going to look for the outliers here, moving down. Okay, so I want to see, like, here's an outlier, here's an outlier, here's an outlier that works really well with some resistance. So I want to make sure that I'm capturing the peaks to the outside so that I stay as precise as I possibly can. Find our low here, and let's see that this would work, but recently it's been, so I'm going to plot it so that you can see, but recently it's been kind of slashed through, so that's not something that I necessarily want to leave there. So I'll take that away. You look through where this oscillation of the uptrend truly starts. And I would argue that you could make either here before the trend break, which is what I think I'm going to use. Need to get the true high though. So that incorporates the next highest point and then from there forward. And let's find that low and find a little bit of a squeeze. So we've got our wedge. Sometimes if you have OHLC, which I do, which is the snapping, it can snap incorrectly. So let's redraw. So I want the low. And you can see that tiny little change right there makes a big difference in terms of that last respect, that last time that trend line was respected. Then from within here, we've got a couple of opportunities. So again, I chose the outliers there. So you notice that I jumped in on the daily, focusing more on trend rather than support and resistance, and that's because on the weekly we already identified the higher time frame support and resistance, and when I transitioned to the daily, I was really looking at this as my start point for trend, right? So for a trending market, that's kind of how I established that we were moving past consolidation and into a heavy trending market. So let me find my timestamp. I'm going to mark that off as our start point, where our analysis starts. And now I can go ahead and I can start to incorporate support and resistance. So we'll leave red as weekly. change this to daily, and we'll do light blue. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to give myself a higher time frame view into what the market's doing, and then from here I'm going to go into marking out some of the smaller time frame stuff so that you can see how much opportunity you can actually give yourself. Okay, so we've got a good bit of opportunity so far. Keep in mind that we are still on the daily, so there's plenty of room to give ourselves a bit more running room here. Go down to the 4 hour. And so now you can see things have started to take shape on the smaller time frame, right? So we're getting down more towards an intraday trader chart. If we were to start marking up So what I'm starting to do is just run through some basic trend and channels within this. And you can clean it up to what suits your style the best. Like for me, that trend line doesn't really work, but because you do want to keep in mind that you're trying to keep this a clean chart. And things that have already broken and been retested, right? So like if you look here, here's a decent level of support or resistance that's broken, then turns support. You look at this trend line, it was tagged, and then it just took off. Well, you don't need to keep that break on your chart anymore because that's well in the past. So in terms of like extended lines, that's not something that might need to be there. For this purpose, I'm just going through and highlighting what I see fit so that you can get a sense for how in real time you approach this, which we will do in real time as we get closer to the actual real-time data. I'm just doing this so that you can see exactly how I approach. Like this for me would have been a perfect opportunity, especially given that you look left and there's some shorter term support and resistance that we haven't yet plotted. That's a perfect opportunity right there, and you can see that the market thought so as well. Let's do 4 hour. Okay, so we've got our 4 hour now set for support and resistance. Excuse me. Actually see off of that level right there, nice little supply zone. You can see that I'm not just sticking with one thing right now. I'm sticking with a bunch of stuff as it comes up and as I see fit to change my analysis here. Let's get more real time. have low. So you can see how calculated the market really is and how defined in structure it really is. And you start to look at it in the grand scheme of trend, supply, demand, support, resistance, and you can start to gather that you don't need all of these tools. You don't even need Fibonacci, really. You can just trade based off of this, trade off of breaks, retests. Okay, so we're getting towards the short term. We're getting towards the present. And with that in mind, so I'm currently long from here based off of this plus some fibs, right? So I got in the test pretty much right here. And I've been using this as analysis moving forward about whether or not to take profit or cut my losses. Well, I shouldn't say cut my losses, but I've been using this as a decision for taking profit versus holding. Okay, so we're in the first decision that I had once I got long was watch for a reaction off of this trend line here, or off of this support level here. So we come up, we fill, come back, and we test this pretty nicely. React strong, come back and react strong again, and then we break above this short-term trend line. So once we did that and we broke above this short-term trend line, excuse me, then I dragged my stop up and I established this short-term trend line. So I used this as my anchor point because this is the or my secondary point because this is what pushed us up above this trend line. This is the move that started it. And this is what kind of institutionalized that trend that we were looking for. So you see we come back, we break, retest. Once we retested here, I drag my stop loss down below this trend line, but above this support level. So like somewhere right here at the 147.20 level. And then from there, it's a matter of now we break above here again, retest and push up to fill the channel high, come back, tag that trend line and that short-term support. So for me, my stop loss was here, right below the trend line, below that level there. But my stop loss was here based on that structure. And so that was my decision point. If we broke below, I was getting stopped out and taking my profits. If not, then I was confident holding for another channel fill or break above this structure here. And then, so once we break above this, if we break above this, I will likely trail my stop to somewhere right around here, 148.51. And then from there, it's a matter of which direction we break the channel, retest, and then go, right? Because we're in a heavy trending market. You can see that there's a lot of channels formed, a lot of wedges formed, and a lot of support and resistance in our favor. So what I want, and this may be tough, is for you all to, on spot Forex, so not futures, not Nadex, but on spot Forex, I want you all to, and it doesn't have to be long term, it can be on the hourly, it can be on the hourly, it can be on the daily, it can be on the 4 hour, really, but I want it to be kind of like the decision for something longer than a daily hold, right? Something that you can have some higher time frame structure you base a decision off of, and then trail accordingly based off the structure as breaking. So I want you to take what you learned so far in terms of wedges, channels, support and resistance, change control, etc., and formulate something like this. Find an entry, explain your entry and explain your trail, and use the structure as your trail, because this is going to be a good transition into calculated moves, which are Fibonacci, and that's I think where a lot of people want to go and want to get to. So when we move to Fibonacci, you're going to start to see how all of this becomes just that much more precise. But for now, before we move there, I want you to have some exposure to trading without Fibonacci and without using with that tool and having it at your disposal, and instead just focusing on pure structure. So please take the time to analyze the charts, find a trade that's based off of pure structure, enter it, and then trail. If you get stopped out, you get stopped out. I don't really care if it's a winning or a losing trade. I just want to see the decision-making process in your plan. So with that, I'm also going to have do another video that's just like this tomorrow for another trade, but it'll be pre-planning a trade. It won't be one that I'm already in. It will be pre-planning a trade, kind of what I want you guys to do. But after this, I'm stepping away from charts for the day, so I won't have access to do it today. Gotta go do some cleanup and rebuying all the groceries that spoiled for the power outage and stuff. So, right. So please take the time to do that. I'll have a new video like going through a pre-planning thing. Maybe we'll enter and trail along the way during the recording, but that is what I'm looking for in terms of preceding moving on to Fibonacci and really getting those calculated moves.